The Midnight Caller. During a hot summer, Emma moved into a new apartment. The first night, just after midnight, her phone rang an unknown number with a chilling whisper on the other end. "I'm watching you." It all started on a hot summer evening when Emma finally moved into her new apartment. The kind of place you find tucked away in a quiet neighborhood where the streetlights flicker softly and the hum of the city feels distant, almost like a secret kept just for her. It was an old building with a faded brick facade and narrow hallways that smelled faintly of dust and memories. But Emma didn't mind. She liked the calm, the way the walls seemed to wrap her in a kind of quiet solitude she hadn't known she needed. The apartment itself was simple. One bedroom, a small kitchen, and a window that looked out onto a courtyard where old trees cast long shadows. Nothing fancy but perfect for someone starting fresh after months of bouncing between temporary places. The rent was reasonable, and the landlord had assured her it was quiet as a mouse. Emma was relieved. After a hectic summer juggling work and moving, she craved normal. She spent the afternoon unpacking boxes, hanging pictures she had collected from small travels, and arranging her few favorite things just so. The routine was comforting, even mundane. She made herself a cup of tea and sat by the window, watching the sky turn a deep orange pink, thinking about the week ahead. It was a fresh start, a clean slate. Nothing was out of place. Nothing was wrong. That first night, the summer heat pressed heavy against the window panes. Emma left the ceiling fan on low and slid under the cool sheets, feeling the exhaustion of the day seep away. The apartment was still except for the faint hum of the refrigerator and the occasional distant siren far enough to feel safe. She closed her eyes and thought tomorrow will be better. Just past midnight, the silence was suddenly broken by the sharp trill of her phone. Emma sat up, surprised. She checked the screen, an unknown number, the kind you never answer. She hesitated, heart fluttering for a moment, then reached for it anyway. "Hello?" she whispered. There was a pause. Then a breathy voice, barely more than a whisper, came through. "I'm watching you." The line went dead. Emma's skin prickled and her breath caught in her throat. She glanced around the dark room, the corners seeming suddenly deeper, shadows longer. She told herself it was a prank, someone messing around with a blocked number, but the feeling lingered. Unease settled quietly beneath the surface. She stared out the window at the courtyard, the trees swaying gently in the summer breeze. Nothing looked different. No one was there. Just silence. The next morning, sunlight spilled through the curtains, making the night's fear seem distant and unreal. Emma shook off the cold tremor and told herself she was imagining things. Moving to a new place always felt a little unsettling at first. The mind played tricks when it was tired. Her days soon settled into a rhythm: work, groceries, cooking simple meals, reading before bed. The neighborhood was peaceful. She waved to a few neighbors she met in passing, the kind faces familiar and warm. Her apartment became a small refuge where she felt safe. Yet beneath the calm surface, something was beginning to shift. Sometimes, when Emma returned home late, she noticed the faint scent of something. She couldn't place a hint of something old like wood smoke mixed with something metallic. The kind of smell that lingered in memories but never quite became clear. She told herself it was just the building settling or the old pipes. One afternoon, while exploring the apartment's creaky basement, a dark, narrow space lined with dusty boxes left behind by previous tenants, she found something unexpected. Tucked away in a cracked wooden crate was an old diary, its leather cover worn and faded. Curiosity won over caution. Emma sat down on the cold concrete floor and flipped through its yellowed pages. The handwriting was elegant, but hurried, filled with fragmented thoughts and strange entries about watching and waiting, about shadows that moved when no one was there. She paused at the last page. There, scrawled hastily in ink almost smeared by time, was a single name, her name, Emma. A chill ran down her spine. How could this be? She looked around the dark basement, the silence pressing in. The walls seemed to lean closer. She closed the diary and tucked it into her bag, telling herself it was just coincidence. Maybe the previous tenant had left it behind, or someone else with the same name. But the diary stayed with her, a quiet reminder of something she didn't yet understand. That night, Emma lay awake, listening to the rhythmic ticking of the clock. Outside, the summer cicadas sang their song, steady and hypnotic. Her thoughts kept returning to the diary, to the strange voice on the phone, and to the feeling just beyond her sight that she was not as alone as she thought. Sleep came slowly, and when it finally did, her dreams were fragmented, filled with whispers and shadows slipping just out of reach. Everything seemed normal, but deep down, Emma knew that something had shifted in her new home. Something waiting in the dark, watching from just beyond the edge of sight. Emma tried to ignore the lingering cold from that night, but as the days passed, subtle oddities began to weave themselves into her routine, like thin threads pulling at the edges of her calm. At first, it was barely noticeable, a soft creak from the floorboards when no one else was home, or the gentle tap of something brushing against the window pane in the stillness of the night. She chalked it up to the quirks of an old building settling into summer heat. But then came the footsteps. Every night around 3 o'clock, Emma heard a distinct knock on her apartment door. 3 sharp raps, like someone demanding attention, but hesitant to be seen. Her heart would pound in her chest as she'd cautiously approach the peephole, only to find the hallway empty, just the dim glow of the flickering fluorescent light and the soft hum of an air conditioner buzzing somewhere down the hall. She thought maybe it was a neighbor checking the wrong door, or her mind playing tricks after reading that diary. But it happened again. and again. She started setting up small cameras in the hallway, a precaution more out of curiosity than fear. When she reviewed the footage, the door was always still. No figure, no shadow, nothing to explain the knock. The knocks kept coming, rhythmic and precise, like a secret code she couldn't decipher. Emma's days blurred as exhaustion crept in. The lines between waking and dreaming grew thinner. Objects shed left on the kitchen counter would be found in strange places. A spoon on the windowsill, a book flipped open to a page. She didn't remember reading a pair of earrings dangling from the ceiling fan pull chain. One evening, while scrolling through her phone, she received a message from an unknown number. It wasn't words, just a picture, a blurry shot of her apartment door taken from the outside. The image was grainy but unmistakable. Her door. Panic tightened her chest, but there was no reply number to call back. Then, in the corner of her bedroom, a shadow seemed to stretch longer than it should, bending unnaturally toward her, as if alive. She blinked and it was gone, but the room felt colder, heavier. Sleep became a battlefield. Emma began waking up at odd hours, heart racing, drenched in sweat. Sometimes she swore. She heard whispers just beyond, hearing soft voices murmuring her name, or the faintest echo of laughter that made her skin crawl. She thought about the diary again, the cryptic entries about watching and waiting, the strange obsession with eyes and silence. She found herself compelled to read it, desperate for answers. The more she read, the more fragmented her reality became. In one entry, the author wrote about feeling watched, about shadows, slipping between moments, about the space where time forgot to move. Another page described the midnight caller, a presence that came not to harm, but to remind, to warn. Emma's rational mind fought to keep control, but every small incident chipped away at her certainty. Was she truly alone, or was something else in the apartment lingering just out of sight? One night, she heard the phone ring again, just after midnight. This time, her hands trembled as she answered. No voice, just breathing. Slow, steady, deliberate. Then a whisper barely audible. You shouldn't be here. The line went dead again. Emma sat frozen, the room closing in. She wanted to leave, to run away from the apartment and never look back. But something held her there, a mix of fear and fascination. She started noticing patterns, things happening only when she was alone, only at night. An old clock in the hallway chiming 13 times instead of 12. Reflections in the window showing shapes behind her that vanished when she turned. She told herself these were tricks of light and mind, but the feeling that she was being watched grew stronger, heavier. Then one afternoon, while cleaning, she found a small piece of paper wedged behind the heater. It was a note, typed but worn with a single chilling sentence. Do not trust the silence. It listens. Emma folded the note, carefully, placing it inside the diary. Her safe, familiar space was unraveling. The apartment she had once thought a refuge now felt like a cage with invisible bars. Emma's life had become a tangled web of sleepless nights and restless days, haunted by things she couldn't explain. The more she resisted, the stronger the presence seemed to grow, pressing in around her like thick fog. One night, after another restless sleep, she woke to a soft, pitiful sound, the quietest sobbing coming from somewhere inside the apartment. She froze, straining to listen. The sound was coming from the corner of her bedroom, near the old rocking chair she'd found at a thrift store and brought home for some comfort. But as she focused, the crying grew louder, small, childlike, desperate. Emma's breath caught. She wasn't alone. When she shone her flashlight into the corner, the chair was empty, but the air was icy cold. Her skin tingled with a prickling sense of being watched. She remembered a passage from the diary, the child who waited gagged and hidden for 7 years, the silence that was never broken. Her heart pounded. The apartment's history was darker than she had imagined. Emma began to notice strange patterns, rules she instinctively sensed but couldn't quite name. She learned that if she looked in the bedroom mirror after 2 a.m., the reflection would distort, showing not her own face, but a shadowy figure hovering just behind her. She never dared to look for long. Sometimes the old clock in the hallway, the one that chimed 13 times, would ring when she was telling a lie or trying to hide something from herself. One evening, Emma slept on the couch instead of her bed. That night, the sobbing came again, this time louder, more urgent, as if someone on the bed beside her was crying. But the bed was empty. She realized the apartment was not only haunted by past pain, but governed by its own twisted rules, a cruel game she hadn't agreed to play. Determined to understand, Emma returned to the basement where she had found the diary. This time, she explored deeper, looking for clues about the apartment's past. She uncovered old news clippings hidden beneath loose floorboards, stories about a child who had vanished from the building decades ago. The child had been kept in a locked room, gagged and isolated by someone trusted to care for them. The case was never solved, the child never found. Emma's blood ran cold. She felt the presence more keenly now, watching, waiting. She tried to keep her distance, but the apartment seemed to pull her in, unraveling her grip on reality. Late one night, she found a message scrawled on the bathroom mirror, written as if by an invisible hand. "Do not sleep when I'm awake." The warning echoed in her mind. Emma's nights became battles with shadows and whispers. The line between the living and the dead blurred. The house no longer felt like a shelter, but a trap. One evening, as she prepared to leave for work, she noticed something chilling on the bedroom ceiling. Scratches faint but unmistakable, carved in long, jagged letters. "Don't sleep when I'm awake." The message was fresh. Her mind screamed to flee, but her feet stayed rooted. Emma was caught in a game with rules. She barely understood, where every movement was watched, every lie punished, and every silence listened to. She knew one thing for certain: whatever haunted the apartment was no longer content to stay hidden in the shadows. That night, Emma made a decision. She would confront whatever was tormenting her. She refused to be a prisoner of shadows any longer. With trembling hands, she gathered a flashlight, the diary, and the scraps of notes she had collected. The apartment felt colder than ever, the air thick with silent threats. As the clock edged toward midnight, she paced the dimly lit rooms, searching for answers, determined to break the cycle. Her footsteps echoed, but somewhere deep in the silence, another set of steps answered back. Slow, deliberate, impossible to place. In the bedroom, she faced the mirror. Heart pounding, she stared into the glass. For a moment, nothing happened. Then slowly a figure appeared behind her, tall, gaunt eyes like black pits. Emma's breath caught in her throat. The figure whispered, barely audible, "You broke the rule." Panicked, she turned to run, but the door slammed shut, trapping her in the room. The temperature dropped sharply. Her breath misted in the freezing air. The crying from before rose in volume, filling the space like a suffocating fog. Emma's flashlight flickered and died. In the darkness, she felt something crawl up her leg, cold, clammy, insistent. She looked down and gasped. A small doll, ragged and worn, with hollow eyes that seemed to glow faintly, was moving toward her. It crawled like a living thing, its tiny hands gripping her skin. She stumbled backward, heart hammering, desperate for escape. Then, from the ceiling, the words carved deep into the plaster glowed faintly, "Don't sleep when I am awake." Emma realized with horror the truth. The presence was not just a haunting, it was a force tied to her very existence in that place. It thrived on her fear, on her attempts to resist. She screamed for help, but the apartment swallowed her voice. The next morning, the neighbors found the apartment door wide open. Inside, everything was untouched, except for Emma's bed, neatly made, as if no one had slept there for days. Her phone lay on the floor screen, cracked, still showing a missed call from an unknown number. No sign of Emma. Weeks passed. Some say they hear faint sobbing from the apartment at night. Others swear the old clock still chimes 13 times at midnight. And sometimes just after midnight, the phone rings. An unknown number. If you listen closely, you might hear a whisper, "I'm watching you."